Now, Game Week 21 might still be going on, but of course, with a quick turnaround to the weekend and Game Week 22, I've asked my FPL experts for their top picks ahead of this game week. And in today's video, we're going to review these players that they've suggested and see if they are worth bringing into your side. Now, of course, before we start today's video, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as we are trying to hit 12,500 subscribers by the end of the season, and it is only possible with your guys' amazing support. So let's take a look at the first player that was recommended by my FPL expert. Of course, it is going to be Chris Wood. I feel this is going to be a very, very popular transfer in, of course, scoring off his one shot against Liverpool. However, with Southampton, one of the worst sides we've seen in recent Premier League history, in Game Week 22, a home fixture, and as you can see here, some decent other fixtures as well alongside that to go with it. I can see why people are jumping on the Chris Wood bandwagon, and why a lot of people are potentially getting a little bit of Wood in their life. Now, I would just like to say and point out his data isn't exceptional, and Nottingham Forest aren't an overly attacking side. They usually win games 1 or 2-0, maybe a couple 2-1s thrown in there as well, but usually they're not a side that goes out and puts 3 or 4 in. That's very rare if you look at some of their results that they picked up this season. They're also not one of the teams that usually dominates the ball, dominates a lot of possession, has more shots than their opponent. Usually they're a little bit more kind of play on the counter, low possession. I think the Liverpool game was a prime example of what Nottingham Forest are good at, and that's not bad. They're doing very well from it. However, from an FPL perspective, with our attackers, we probably do want them to be having more shots, getting in the box more, creating more opportunities, have good underlying data. However, Chris Wood just seems to be in his purple patch at the moment, where he just can't stop scoring regardless of who he's playing. And I do think against Southampton, this could be one of the rare occasions that Nottingham Forest do go and get more than one goal. But I do think, you know, there are some difficult fixtures in there. Bournemouth are pretty neat and nifty defence as well this season. Same goes with Fulham and Newcastle away. All of those fixtures being away from home as well could be very, very difficult for Chris Wood and Nottingham Forest from an attacking perspective. They're probably in those games as well going to be a little bit more defensively minded with them being away fixtures as well. So that's potentially something to impact with Chris Wood. But overall, I do think for Game Week 22, he is going to be a really, really high-owned asset. And if you are maybe in the market for a striker, I do believe Chris Wood could be a very, very good pickup. So I'm going to give the seal of approval on that one. So, you know, thank you very much for the suggestion from my FPL experts. Let's move on then, take a look at the next two players. And you know what? Both of these, everybody knows I love both of these players. I've not taken Bryan Mbeumo out my side. I'm looking to potentially go and get Yoane Wissa back for that Crystal Palace fixture as well. As you can see, the next 3 fixtures, a little bit more difficult than I think probably people expect. But Liverpool defensively at the moment are struggling. Obviously, they've got Champions League midweek as well, so there's probably going to be a little bit of rotation within the back line. I probably imagine it's going to be more towards the Champions League game, with them, of course, kind of confirming their status into the next round of that competition as well. But as you can see, some of the numbers that these guys have been putting up with difficult fixtures, never mind decent-ish fixtures here. Palace and Tottenham, both pretty leaky defences as well. Yoane Wissa's as well, underlying data is exceptional. I spoke in length about him in the Transfer Targets video yesterday, a player I'm really, really looking to go and bring in. I think the ideal point is, of course, going to be Game Week 23. Going up against the best side for XG conceded is going to be a difficult task for Brentford. However, it is a home fixture. They've got super, super good home form as well this season, so I wouldn't rule it out. Of course, if you are on the market as well for a midfielder, I think you can't really go wrong with Bryan Mbeumo. He is involved in absolutely everything. I'm really unsure how he managed not to come away with an attacking return in that City game as well. He was brilliant. Of course, on penalties, 90 minutes. What more could you ask for from a midfielder as well? So I definitely think these two are probably going to be on my radar, probably Game Week 23 and beyond. I think 22 probably going to be a little bit too soon. However, if you want to get in early on the trend, I think 22 could be an okay point, but I think the ideal point, of course, is going to be in Game Week 23. So again, thumbs up from me and, you know, the FPL experts picking some very, very good players here to, of course, go and select with your side. We covered this in the transfer target section, but of course, it was going to creep its way into the FPL experts section as well, with, of course, the double game week coming in 24. If you've been living under a rock, of course, now Everton and Liverpool Liverpool both double in these game weeks. And I said in the transfer targets video yesterday, I don't really feel outside of Pickford and Mikalenko there's going to be anybody that's really worth any suggestions. I am filming this before, of course, Everton play tonight. So maybe if DCL and Dye, maybe one of the midfielders, does start to look bright over the next few weeks, could be one to consider. But right at this moment, right at the time of recording, there isn't anybody. However, my FPL experts were very, very keen on the Liverpool players, more from the defensive side rather than the attacking side. And I do feel that kind of correlates with what I spoke about yesterday in the transfer targets video, where there is so much rotation, so many fixtures coming up for those attackers that outside of Salah, I do feel it's going to be a lot more difficult to select, of course, one of those going forward. However, the players that we covered in yesterday's video were pretty much all mentioned in the kind of FPL Experts Discord that I've got as well. So Trent, Van Dijk, Konate, Diaz, Diego Jota as well. Of course, he a little bit more of a minute's risk. So let's start off with the attackers first. Of course, we covered the defenders yesterday. We all know the fixtures, pretty decent from an attacking standpoint, and I would probably argue Ipswich in the double, very, very good from the defensive standpoint as well. Of course, harping back to that video and looking at the 11-ify data for clean sheets as well, we did see really, really good numbers for Liverpool projected over the next 5 to 6 game weeks as well. From that attacking standpoint, I would say my personal favourite is going to be Cody Gakpo out of everybody. I feel he is the first choice left-hand side player in that Liverpool front three. I think Diaz is probably the second on that left, and I probably feel him and Diego Jota are actually going to be fighting out for that number 9 position. So I think Gakpo's probably the one that I would select out of all of them. Of course, he plays as a forward as well. If you've maybe got Gabriel Jesus, or maybe at that point, you know, Chris Wood's maybe had a few blanks, we might be looking to get rid of him. Maybe you've got Nicholas Jackson as well. He would be a player I think I might potentially take a little bit of a punt on as well. With decent fixtures coming up, as you can see, his underlying data isn't too bad. And like I said, I do feel like that left-hand side, of course, is for him to lose. In terms of the other two, Jota, I mean, he's just coming back from an injury again. His per 90 data is excellent, but as I said in yesterday's video, I don't think, you know, those numbers accurately reflect his performances, because of course he hasn't really played too many 90 minutes, so of course his numbers are going to look extremely elevated. Same goes with his predicted points as well. That's, you know, low, because obviously the Fantasy Football Hub model is only just expecting him to come back from injury and a couple of appearances off the bench. So I do feel it could be very, you know, maybe too soon to bring him in for 22. Maybe one when we get closer to the double and if he's been playing more consistent minutes. So I think with the attackers, for me personally, I wouldn't go and bring in any of them for the next 2 weeks. I think 24 is probably where I would look to bring them in, get them for the double, or maybe the Ipswich game as well in 23. But of course, like I said, there is going to be a lot of rotation with Liverpool in lots of cup competitions, Champions League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup semi-final, second leg as well. So there is going to be a lot of rotation within those attacking lineups. So I do think it probably is going to be a void till probably the double game week for me personally. On the defensive side, I think Konate is going to be a great way into that Liverpool defence. Alisson as well also fits into that bracket. I think Van Dijk's a little bit of a loose end. I don't think it's worth paying the 6.4 million for him over Konate in my personal opinion, so I would just select Konate. And then Trent Alexander-Arnold, he is at a high elevated price point, but I would prefer him over Diaz, Gakpo and Diego Jota. However, his recent performances defensively have left a lot to be desired. I know from an FPL standpoint he's been pretty okay, but of course it is about football and it is about winning games for this Liverpool side, and if his defensive performances are starting to look a little bit weaker, maybe we could see Conor Bradley potentially dropped in a few of these games as well. So that might be potentially something to monitor as well. Like I said, again, that heavy rotation I am expecting from this Liverpool side. But right now, if you had to ask me to pick one player, I probably would either go for Konate or Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think everybody else right now is not really, for me, going to be worth any consideration until probably next weekend, and we've seen the Champions League and what rotation looks like there. And of course, maybe going into that double game week as well. Again, we'll have more information ahead of that one with Champions League and FA Cup fixtures as well. So lots to think about going into that double game week. But as of right now, like I said, Trent and Konate probably the only ones I would pick from my FPL expert selections. They also did mention McAllister. However, I looked at his data and I wasn't overly convinced by McAllister. And for his price point, I feel he's competing with a lot better players who put up per 90 data that's a lot better and actually gets more attacking returns. So that for me, not really going to be a player I would be selecting. One that's probably going to be quite a rogue one, I would feel, Actually, this is the wrong slide. It's a different slide. The next one's a rogue one. But this is the Forest defenders. Obviously, a few of us have obviously had Aina for large parts of the season. Mikalenkovic, Sells. People have been suggesting, and some of my experts suggesting, maybe worth going for that double up in terms of Forest defenders. They've been exceptional in terms of their defensive numbers and some of the clean sheets that they've been putting up this season. Or some people might, of course, be looking to jump into the Forest defenders with, you know, Aina and Mikalenkovic. I feel now not really justifying their price points. Of course, if you've had them for large parts of the season, you've taken the price rises, fair enough. However, I would not be paying 5.2 million for Aina right now. I would rather be looking at a Murillo or a Nico Williams. Murillo coming in at 4.6 has been doing really, really well. He's the more aggressive defender out of the two as well, so probably a little bit more prone to a yellow card. However, I do feel it could be exceptionally good for bonus, with him, of course, him maybe picking up a few tackles. He had a few rogue shots as well last night in the Liverpool game as well. So for 4.6 million, I like him as an option if you've not got any Forest defenders. However, the one that would really tickle my pickle is, of course, Nico Williams at 4.3 million. His minutes seem very, very good. Lots of secure 90s as well. We know from his days at Liverpool and from some seasons at Forest, he does have a little bit of attacking potential. Of course, in this new role that he is playing, he doesn't really bomb forward too much, but as you can see, a little bit better data than Murillo over the past few weeks as well, so could be a decent option at 4.3 million. I really, really like this this pick that my FPL experts have found in Nico Williams at 4.3, getting into a really, really good defence with some okay-ish fixtures, I would say, over the next few as well. Seems like a little bit of a no-brainer, of course, if you are in the market for a cheap defender. Let's move on then, and the final player of today's video, of course, it is going to be that rogue pick I did a little bit kind of tease you with. It is going to be Dominic Solanke. Now, I am filming this before the North London derby, so if he does pick up any injuries or anything like that, of course, ignore exactly everything that's going to come out of my mouth and click off the video and, you know, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. But Dominic Solanke and Spurs have some really, really good fixtures coming up. They are playing, if you look at the fixtures here, they are playing some of the worst defences for XG conceded in the entire league. Everton, Leicester, Brentford, Manchester United and Ipswich. And it's not like Spurs are a bad attack. They're a very, very good attack, and they can go and get goals in a lot of these games. I feel very, very confident about that. Of course, though, the problem is Dominic Solanke. Now, his data, his goal returns, they've been okay, they've been alright, but he's not a player that picks up bonus or more than one goal. It does seem like he is a little bit out of it. However, with some of us, of course, looking to move away from Nicholas Jackson, with him continuing to frustrate his owners, maybe Dominic Solanke could be the one. Now, he's only picked up 6 bonus points this season, which I do feel is his big problem this year in a Spurs shirt. Of course, that wasn't a problem last year when he was playing for Bournemouth. He was the main man. When he usually got a goal, he usually picked up quite well in bonus. Now that he's playing for Tottenham, that doesn't seem to be the case. Maybe the bonus changes that they made earlier this season have had a bigger impact on him. And I do feel that is probably leading to a lot of people overlooking him as well, because when he does score, he doesn't usually pick up the bonus as well. But with those Spurs fixtures coming up, decent numbers on the 11FI data as well, I think my FPL experts could be onto something here. Maybe Dominic Solanke, maybe a couple of the Spurs attackers definitely could be worth a little bit of consideration. Like I said, they're coming up against some of the worst teams for XG conceded, and I think this could be maybe an avenue for a few differentials within your side if you are looking to attack the next few weeks. Of course, those were my picks from my FPL experts. Let me know what you think of them down in the chat. Of course, if you've got any questions about your team, get them in, as we'll try to answer many as we possibly can. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck in game week 22.